The first thing I noticed when I opened the door was the green dress hanging over the back of the chair. Marina didn't own a green dress. She hated green, said it made her look like a sea monster. The second thing I noticed was the faint smell of cigarette smoke drifting through the apartment. Neither of us smoked. It was quiet, too quiet. The TV was on, but the volume was so low I could only hear the muffled hum of a commercial. And there, on the coffee table, was a single champagne flute, half empty, lipstick smudged along the rim. Not Marina's shade. I called her name. No answer. Her phone was on the couch, face down, buzzing every few seconds. Normally, I wouldn't snoop, but the vibration was constant, like someone was trying to get her attention now. I turned it over. 6 missed calls, all from a contact saved as Ivy, and then a text that read, "He's here. You need to leave before he sees you." My hands went cold. I stood in the living room for what felt like hours, staring at that text, trying to convince myself it was some bizarre misunderstanding. But then I heard the creak of the stairwell outside. My heart jumped into my throat. I ran to the window just in time to see a flash of movement. A woman, tall, dark hair, wearing the green dress, slipping out the building's side door. She didn't even look back. I didn't recognize her. She wasn't one of Marina's friends, at least not any I'd met. But here's the thing. She didn't look guilty. She looked urgent, like she'd just escaped something. Before I could decide whether to follow her, someone knocked on my door. It was Mr. Halpern, my next-door neighbor, the kind of guy who waters his plants twice a day and knows everyone's business without ever leaving his slippers. He glanced over my shoulder into the apartment and said, "She left in a hurry." I asked what he meant, but he just shrugged, leaning against the doorframe like he was about to tell me the plot twist to a movie I hadn't finished. "That wasn't Marina," he said slowly. "She came up here about 20 minutes ago with some guy in a leather jacket." They went inside. Music started, and then I heard voices. Angry ones. A minute later, your Marina walked out first. Didn't even lock the door behind her. I could feel the blood rushing to my face. Marina had been here, with someone else, and then left this mystery woman in my apartment? I glanced back at the half-empty champagne glass, the buzzing phone, the smell of smoke that still clung to the air. I didn't want to believe it, but something inside me knew. Whatever Marina was doing tonight, it wasn't something she planned to tell me about. And for the first time in our relationship, I wasn't sure I even wanted to ask. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the woman in the green dress slipping out the side door and Mr. Halpern's smug expression when he told me Marina left with some guy. By 2 in the morning, the buzzing from Marina's phone had stopped, but the damage was already done. Those unanswered calls, that single cryptic text, they had burned themselves into my brain. I wanted to confront her, but part of me was afraid. Afraid of hearing an explanation that would make everything worse. The next morning, Marina still hadn't come home. She sent me one short text at 7:14 a.m. Staying at Claire's. Don't wait up tonight either. Love you. No explanation, no mention of the dress, the stranger, or why she'd vanished in the middle of the night. Just a quick message like she was heading to yoga. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at it, wondering if this was the first time she'd pulled something like this, or if it was just the first time I'd caught her. That's when I noticed something else. Her spare set of keys wasn't in the little ceramic dish by the door, the one she always used. Which was strange, because she never took that set anywhere. That set had one extra key on it, a small brass one I'd always assumed was for some old lockbox she kept in her closet. I'd never asked, because we both had our own personal space rules. But now those rules didn't seem so sacred anymore. I hate to admit this, but I went into her closet. Behind a stack of shoeboxes and a duffel bag, I found a narrow black case I'd never seen before. The brass key fit perfectly. Inside, no money, no jewelry. Just an envelope with 2 glossy photographs and a folded piece of paper. The photos weren't explicit, but they were unsettling. One showed Marina in a dimly lit room with red walls, standing next to 2 women I didn't recognize, all of them wearing masks that covered half their faces. The second photo was of a black door with a silver raven painted on it. The paper was stranger. No words, just a printed symbol, a circle with jagged lines cutting through it, like some secret club logo. My stomach nodded. I didn't know what this was, but I knew it wasn't just girls' night. And the worst part? I had this sinking feeling I was already too late to stop whatever she was getting into. I told myself a dozen times that I wasn't going to get involved. That if Marina wanted to disappear for 2 nights without telling me where she was, then fine. Let her. But that's a lie. The truth is, I couldn't focus on anything else. My work sat untouched. My coffee went cold. And every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photograph of the black door with the silver raven staring back at me. By late afternoon, my curiosity had morphed into a kind of obsession. I pulled the photo out of the envelope again, holding it under the lamp and studying every inch. The wall around the door was chipped brick, painted over with black, and in the lower right corner, I spotted a faded number, 63. That was enough to start digging. A couple of hours of online searches and dead ends later, I found something. A handful of old forum posts from years ago talking about an invite-only club downtown. Nobody mentioned a name, but they all described the same entrance, a black-painted brick wall, a silver raven, and no signs. One post called it a place where you go to forget you have a life outside. Another called it trouble wrapped in champagne. I didn't have an address, but I knew it had to be somewhere near the old warehouse district. I drove down there as the sun was setting, my mind racing the whole time. Part of me hoped I wouldn't find it. Part of me was terrified I would. The district was nearly deserted, just long rows of abandoned factories with boarded-up windows, broken streetlights, and graffiti curling around every corner. I almost turned back twice, but then I saw it. Half hidden between 2 crumbling brick buildings, there it was. The black door. The raven. Exactly like the photo. I parked half a block away and sat there for 10 minutes, just watching. The street was quiet except for the occasional car rolling past. Then, out of nowhere, a black SUV pulled up in front of the door. 2 women in short dresses got out, laughing like they were in on a secret, and walked right up to it. One of them knocked twice, paused, then knocked again. A narrow slot opened in the door, someone inside looked out, and after a second, the door swung open. The women disappeared inside. I wanted to follow, but my chest was tight and my hands were sweating so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. What would I even say if I saw her in there? That I was just in the neighborhood? That I happened to be stalking the exact building she'd been photographed in front of? I stayed in the car for nearly an hour, watching people come and go, always in small groups, always dressed like they were headed somewhere far from ordinary. And then, just when I thought I was wasting my time, I saw her. Marina. No mask this time. No hesitation. She was talking to a man in a dark suit, smiling like she belonged there. He put his hand on her back and led her inside. And just like that, the black door closed behind them. I don't even remember making the decision to get out of the car. One moment I was gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white, and the next I was halfway down the block, my heart hammering like I'd been caught doing something criminal. The air smelled faintly of rain, though the sky hadn't opened up yet, and every footstep I took toward that black door felt heavier than the last. I tried to picture what I would say if Marina saw me, but my mind kept coming up blank. When I reached the wall, the door looked even more imposing up close. The silver raven wasn't just painted, it was carved into the metal, its wings spread wide, its eyes almost glaring at me. I hesitated, glancing over my shoulder to make sure no one was watching. Then I knocked, twice, pause, then once more. Nothing happened. I knocked again, trying to mimic exactly what the women had done earlier. A few seconds later, a small metal slot slid open, revealing a pair of sharp eyes in the darkness. "What do you want?" the voice asked, low and flat. My throat went dry. I'm here to see someone," I stammered. The eyes narrowed. "Who?" And that was when I almost turned and ran. But I heard myself say, "Marina. She's expecting me." It wasn't true, but it was the only name I could think of that might get me inside. The man behind the door was silent for a moment. Then the slot snapped shut. My stomach dropped, certain I'd blown it. But then the door creaked open just enough for me to slip inside. The first thing that hit me was the sound, a low, heavy bass thumping from somewhere deep within, vibrating through the floor. The lighting was dim, mostly deep reds and purples, casting long shadows on the brick walls. The air was thick with the scent of perfume and something sweet, maybe champagne. A narrow hallway stretched ahead, with soft laughter and muffled voices echoing from around a corner. I moved slowly, my eyes trying to adjust, my ears catching fragments of conversations that didn't make sense. "She'll never find out. Did you bring it? Only if you're ready. The hallway opened into a larger space, and for a moment I just stood there, overwhelmed. It wasn't chaos exactly. It was controlled, like a stage where every person knew their role except me. Groups of people clustered in corners, some sitting on velvet couches, others standing near the bar. Everyone seemed to know each other, and everyone was dressed like they'd stepped out of a secret fashion show. And then I saw her. Across the room, Marina was laughing, her hand resting on the shoulder of the man in the dark suit. He was leaning in close, saying something in her ear. She didn't notice me, not yet. I stayed in the shadows, frozen, realizing I had no plan for what came next. All I knew was that whatever this place was, she was here willingly. And that hurt more than I'd expected. I was about to step forward when I felt a hand clamp down on my arm. "You're not supposed to be here," a woman's voice said behind me, low and firm. When I turned, I realized it was the same woman from last night, the one in the green dress. Only now, she wasn't smiling. Her grip was surprisingly strong, and before I could react, she was already steering me away from the main room, her heels clicking against the floor like gunshots in the dim hallway. I wanted to shake her off, to demand answers right there, but something in her expression made me follow. She wasn't looking at me. She was scanning the crowd, eyes darting to the man in the suit and back again, like she was calculating how much time we had. She pushed open a side door and led me into a narrow service corridor lined with crates and metal shelving. The bass from the main room was still pounding faintly, but here it felt muted, almost like the walls themselves were absorbing it. She finally let go of my arm, turning to face me, and for the first time I could see her clearly. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, but there was a tightness around her eyes that didn't match the elegance. "You shouldn't have come here," she said. Her voice wasn't angry, it was something worse. Urgent. Low. Like she was talking to someone who had already stepped too far over the line. I opened my mouth, but she cut me off before I could get a single word out. "You think you're here to catch her, right? That's not what's going on." "What is going on?" I demanded, my voice sharper than I intended. "Why is Marina here? And why do you keep showing up where she is?" She gave a bitter laugh, though there was no humor in it. "Because I've been where you are. I followed someone through that door once too. Thought I could drag them back. Thought I could save them. You can't." I wanted to tell her she was being dramatic, but the memory of Marina's easy laugh across the room, the way she leaned into that man's shoulder, silenced me. "Save them from what?" I asked. The woman's expression shifted, and for a second I thought she might actually tell me. Instead, she stepped closer, lowering her voice. "If you stay in here much longer, you'll find out. And once you do, you won't be able to walk away. They'll make sure of it. So I'm telling you this because I wish someone had told me. Leave. Forget you saw her. You'll only lose more if you don't." Something about the way she said lose more made my stomach twist. Is this about money? Drugs? What? Her eyes flicked toward the hallway, and her voice hardened. "Curtis, I'm not here to explain the rules. I'm here to get you out before you become part of them. You think you can just confront her and leave? It doesn't work like that. This place, it pulls people in, and they don't all make it out the same." Before I could push for more, the door at the end of the corridor swung open. The man in the dark suit stepped in, his gaze shifting from her to me in one slow, deliberate motion. Marina was behind him, her smile gone, replaced by something unreadable. The woman in green gave me one last look, her hand brushing mine for just a second. "Last chance," she whispered. "Walk out now." I didn't move. And that's when the man in the suit said, "Why don't we all go back to the party?" I didn't move. The man in the suit didn't take his eyes off me. Marina's expression had changed again. She was calm now, almost serene, as if the panic from earlier had never existed. She stood behind the man in the suit, almost like she was waiting for something. Or someone. It felt like a trap, and I was the bait. For a second, everything in me screamed to turn around and run. To ignore whatever this place was, whatever it was trying to pull me into, and just leave. But then I looked at Marina again. The woman I thought I knew. And in that moment, I couldn't just walk away. I couldn't leave her there. The Marina I loved had disappeared the moment she'd crossed that black door. The man in the suit stepped forward, his voice low but calm. "You're not going anywhere yet, Curtis." I didn't ask how he knew my name. Somehow, it didn't matter. I opened my mouth to say something. Anything. But the words wouldn't come. This wasn't like any confrontation I'd ever imagined. There was no yelling, no desperate pleas. There was just an overwhelming sense that I had walked into something far bigger than I could understand. Marina's lips parted, but it wasn't to speak to me. "It's done," she said, her voice soft, detached. "There's no turning back now." I stared at her, confused. "What do you mean, done? What's going on here?" The man in the suit turned toward her, nodding slightly. "She's right. Once you step inside, the game begins. And no one leaves without playing." "Game?" I asked, my voice trembling now. "What the hell does that mean?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he motioned toward a door on the far side of the room, where the flickering of neon lights leaked through the cracks. It wasn't the kind of party I'd imagined when I first arrived. It wasn't glamorous or chic. It was darker, far darker, and it felt like a place where the rules didn't apply. Marina walked toward the door without a word, her eyes focused straight ahead. I wanted to call her name, to pull her back, but my feet felt glued to the floor. The man in the suit stood next to me now, so close I could feel the heat from his body. "Do you really want to know what's behind the door?" he asked, his voice like smooth steel. I nodded, my throat dry. "Yes, I need to know." He smiled, but it wasn't a smile of kindness. It was the smile of someone who knew something you didn't, and couldn't even begin to understand. "You'll wish you hadn't asked," he said, and without waiting for a response, he opened the door. The air hit me immediately, the sharp scent of something I couldn't place, the sound of murmurs, the faint click of heels on hard flooring. It was like stepping into another world, a world where normal rules didn't apply. The people inside weren't dancing. They weren't celebrating. They were watching, standing around in a circle, their faces impassive, their gazes locked on one person in the center. And that's when I saw it. Marina was standing in the center of the circle, her head bowed, her hands folded in front of her like she was waiting for a verdict. The man in the suit stepped in behind me and nodded, signaling for me to approach. I didn't want to, but something forced me forward. Something made me step into the circle, my heart pounding in my chest. When I reached her, I was almost overwhelmed by the strange, electric energy in the room. Every person standing around us seemed to be holding their breath, watching me, watching Marina. And then, as if on cue, the man in the suit stepped forward and said, "It's time for the game to begin." The silence that followed was deafening. Marina looked up at me, her eyes calm, empty, and for the first time, I realized she wasn't the woman I thought I knew. She had crossed a line I couldn't even see. Whatever this game was, it had already started, and I was trapped in it now, just like her. The room was still. The air was thick with anticipation. I was standing next to Marina, the woman I thought I knew, and the man in the suit was standing behind me, his presence cold and imposing. It was clear now that whatever was happening here wasn't some party. It was a test, a game, something that held more power than I could have ever imagined. And I was stuck in it. "Ready to play?" the man asked, his voice smooth, almost casual. I felt a wave of nausea hit me. Play? What did that even mean? But then, something in Marina's eyes caught my attention. She wasn't calm. She wasn't detached. She was scared, just like me. And in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't where she belonged. She was trapped too, just like I was. I took a deep breath. "I'm not playing," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside me. The man in the suit raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. "You think you can just walk away from this? Once you're in, you're in. There's no leaving." But as he said it, something in the room shifted. The energy around us began to crack, like the very foundation of this place was starting to erode. I could feel it, the pull of the game, the pressure of it pushing us all into a corner. But I refused to back down. I turned to Marina, looking into her eyes, and in that moment, everything changed. She wasn't the person who had been laughing with strangers or walking through dark doors anymore. She was the woman I had fallen in love with, the one who had dreams and hopes beyond whatever this place was. "We're leaving," I said firmly. Marina hesitated for just a second, but then, something in her shifted too. The fog in her eyes lifted, and she nodded. For the first time since I'd found the invitation, I saw a spark of the woman I recognized. I walked toward the door, my hand gripping Marina's tightly, and the man in the suit didn't stop us. He didn't say a word. He just watched us, his face unreadable. And as we stepped through the door, the strange energy of the room seemed to dissipate, like we were leaving behind a dream that never truly existed. When we reached the street, the world felt different. The night air was cool and fresh, like everything had been cleansed. The buildings seemed less threatening, and the lights of the city shone brighter. I didn't know how we'd gotten out of that place, or why it had let us go, but for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Marina squeezed my hand, looking up at me with a soft smile. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant to pull you into that. I didn't even realize how deep I was in until it was too late." I smiled back, finally feeling the weight of everything we'd been through lift. "We'll figure it out. Together." And for the first time in what felt like forever, I knew that no matter what happened next, we had a chance to build something real. Something that wasn't controlled by the darkness of secrets or the grip of mysterious games. The Raven Room would always exist in the background, but it no longer had any hold over us. We'd made it out, and that was enough.